welcome back to another video. Today we have got a posterior training walkthrough. So first things first, apologies if there is a little bit of background noise. I'm currently getting my steps in whilst I record this because I'm heading off to work straight after. I'm just trying to multitask right now, but this session is out of Ultraflex, okay? And in this posterior session, I start off with some bicep work, all right? So obviously, the biceps aren't part of the posterior chain, but it's just looking at how to allocate volume across the week. With my split currently being assigned as upper, lower, anterior, posterior, I've then got arms already in my anterior day. So instead of just adding more total volume there, it makes more sense to split it across the week and just delegate it to a session where there's no arm work in there. So we've got biceps on a posterior day at the beginning of the session because the arm work will not take away from the remainder of the work, which is all obviously posterior chain focus. So hamstrings, a little bit of glutes in there, lats, upper back, all those kind of larger muscle groups, right? So it's a very productive way to start a session and a smarter way to split your total volume across the week. And first up, we've got the Cybex Eagle Preacher Curl machine. Now, I use this machine twice per week. It makes it very easy to track progression and progress at a faster rate, right? Because we're being very consistent with it. So this machine, I think it's a slightly older variation that they have out of their Viking gym, but this is the one that I'm using, Ultraflex here. And as you can see, I use the handles, okay? I see some people put straight bars through there and I've trialed this, but I've just reverted back to the handle variation and it's been working beautifully for me. So with this, what I'm thinking is I'm actually pronating my shoulders. I'm driving my shoulders forwards and I'm thinking of driving my arms out and away from me and then scooping up. A lot of people will stop the elbow flexion at around 90 degrees, but this machine allows you to go that a little bit further. So don't neglect that extra range of motion. Drive your triceps into the pad for stability, okay? I don't want to see any of my upper arm lifting up off that pad, okay? Controlled descent. It is very heavy in the stretch and then starts to drop off as you get towards the top. But you can see here, I am grinding through these reps. I'm persevering because I know that it's going to drop off based on like the resistance profile of this machine. So really sticking to it, keeping that intensity there throughout prep. I have not deviated from this level of effort, right? What built the muscle will keep the muscle. So it's very important that you still train with intensity, regardless of how you feel, regardless of the reps. I'm not looking at the logbook at this point. I'm just chasing good quality reps and trying to get the most out of every single set without getting too attached to numbers. Now, a little bit more bicep work here. And we have gone old school. So I do 3 total sets on the Cybex Preacher Curl machine and then go into 1 set of these dumbbell hammer curls, right? I use the bench here as a chest support. So yes, it is a little bit of a geeky variation, but it just ensures that I'm stable throughout. I'm not using any momentum and I'm able to isolate the arms very well throughout this. So spending a good amount of time in the contracted position, as well as a slow descent, you know, coming to a full stop at the bottom using no momentum here. And you can see my shoulder is not traveling, my elbow is not traveling. This is all being driven through elbow flexion, okay? And again, really persevering through those reps, driving everything through the bicep. I may shift a little bit towards the end on the final rep just to get a little bit more out the movement. But other than that, my form is very strict. Now, going on to the back work, okay? So we are starting off with this prime lat pull down. This is something that I was actually running during the off season, but I was flicking between machines very frequently. And I've came back to this one, and after a little break, this has been running very nicely for myself. So you can see when I first begin, I start off just by coming into like a stretch position really to establish that feeling and that connection within my lats. I then get myself under the pad, nice and stable. Make sure that I'm set up perfectly. Make sure that it's lined up right. So I'm using a slight semi-supinated grip. And the main kind of cues here are I'm keeping my shoulders locked into place, okay? You'll see there is no shoulder elevation. They are not retracting, protracting. They are remaining fixed in place. The only thing that I'm driving through this movement is through my elbow. So I like to imagine my hands are hooks and I'm driving everything through the elbow down towards the pocket. You'll see I'm trying to keep my arm path in front of me, okay? This is going to ensure that I work the lats as effectively as possible. And again, like that intensity is there, that persevering through those grind reps is there. A lot of people I see will start to struggle and they will just quit. Persevere through the sticking point, okay? And what's the worst that's going to happen, all right? It's a lat pull down. You're not going to seriously injure yourself if you're keeping your form to a high standard like I am myself. Like every rep from beginning to end, I'm trying to make it look the same here, okay? So I do slightly lean back onto this, and this is just because it works for me. It allows me to keep my arms in front of me throughout this movement. And you'll see the beauty of these prime pieces of kit is that you can adjust the resistance profile and the loading of the machine. So I've gone here for 80% of the weight on the top peg, 20% on the middle. That makes it heavier in the stretch portion, and then it will drop off as I get towards the contracted position. So as you get throughout your session, your ability to work in the shortened range, it is going to diminish, okay? This is where it's going to be the most fatiguing. So I want it so that it starts off heavy and then starts to drop off towards that end position. I like keeping it loaded in the middle peg. I don't go fully top peg because it feels better for me. I don't like when it starts off super heavy and then there's just like absolute air once you get past like the halfway point. I like to keep that feeling throughout. And again here, you'll see my core is like braced. I am not shaking. A lot of you motherfuckers who skip ab work, you get found out on this machine because you are shaking like a shitting dog. So do not skip your core training because you need your core to be stable to work through these lat movements. Now, going a bit more old school. Here we have got the hammer strength isolateral row. This is a lat focus row. And with this, obviously this is working more in a horizontal plane rather than a vertical. So with this one, right, it's the same thing. My shoulder remains fixed in place. Everything is just being driven through that elbow. But with this, I am pulling on a downwards motion. I am not pulling straight back. I've got my rib cage over my pelvis. I've got my chest nice and tall, hips slightly off tilt. I like to sit down for this. I see a lot of people who will like stand, but for me, it just doesn't feel right. So I've had a few weeks to play around with this, seeing as my session changed, this posterior session changed, and this has been recently added in. Obviously, I've been on this new split for around about 4 weeks now, so I've had enough time to trial and get used to it. And this setup is what works for me. Use my other hand to brace against the pad. Again, I'm keeping my core braced throughout this. I am not excessively shifting my torso throughout this movement, okay? I may do it a little bit at the end to just help me finalize the rep, but I'm trying to be as strict, as stringent as possible. Finishing off around about 90 degrees, that elbow next to the rib cage, and again, just controlling it all the way. So here's it from the opposite end. I definitely connect better with my right side than my left. I think this is quite a common thing with lat work, but it has certainly improved over time, that level of proprioception, just because I've developed a better level of like skill acquisition through like purely practicing it. But this is from around about 3 weeks out. Yeah, 3 weeks out, this training footage is from, and you can see I am pretty fucking conditioned, right? Rear delt striations. You can actually see some trap striations on the next movement. So yeah, we're nearly there. We are definitely like on track for show number 1. But you can see here, the shoulder, again, it's not depressing, it's not elevating, I'm keeping it fixed. And you can even see, like with a number of these movements, I will engage my back first before my elbow even starts to move. I have got that level of mind muscle connection where I can turn my back on before I then pull anything back through the elbows, right, and really drive everything through the target muscle. This is the movement I was talking about. One of my friends actually came over and started recording from the side and he pointed out the striations to me. That's the only reason I mention it, because obviously I don't have a clue, it's on my back. But yeah, this is the prime seated row. So again, using a similar resistance profile here, like an 80-20 split, mainly on the top peg. So it's heaviest at the bottom and it's starting to drop off here. Now, upper back is my weakest area. This is an area that needs a lot of work. And I think it's just because I've got a tendency to tuck my elbows in, so that with the elbow path in your setups, it's very easy for certain parts of your back to like take over. And I think that has just been the case for me when I've been running things like a T-bar row. Obviously this isn't the best angle here for demonstration purposes, but it looks pretty sick, doesn't it, right? For cinematic purposes, this is a pretty good one, okay? So yeah, you can see here how everything is lined up. In comparison to lat movements where I've got my elbows like very, very tucked in, okay? This one, we are going for a lot more of a flare, okay? I want here, I'm playing around with like my shoulder position, shuffle the hips back so I'm at a little bit more of an angle. And then here, this is like, right, I've found it now. This is exactly the angle that I want to be at. So this is why it's important to kind of not necessarily do warm-up sets, okay? Because at this point, I've more than warmed up my back. But why it can always make sense to go in initially with a bit of a lighter weight so that you can practice the movement, okay? Like feeler reps, and just do a couple, okay? Don't waste any energy here, and just get a feel for the movement, because there's no one person who can just pull off a movement perfectly right off rip. It may take 1, 2, 3 reps to get the feel and get your setup like perfectly. Like, even though my setup, because I've been running this for a while, I do feel as if I've got it pretty much down. It takes a couple reps before I'm like, yeah, it's on, right? And then the set really, really goes from there. And we're not wasting any additional time here. Now onto the prime seated leg curl. So with this one, there is numerous cam settings. So for the first set, I think I do 2 sets here, right? But I've only included 1 because of how long my sets actually are. And I think just because of how long, like this video is already 12 minutes in, you have a good understanding of the amount of like, why I've probably been able to grow so much within the 1.5 years I spent within an off season. And it's because I'm keeping my steps to a very high standard. I am very tempo oriented. I am very intensity and effort oriented, form oriented. Take a shot every time Josh says oriented. But here, what I'm cueing is I am actually, instead of thinking of just like driving myself back into the back support, ensuring that my lower back doesn't arch, to remain stable throughout this movement, I'm actually thinking of driving my quads up into that pad. And instead of thinking of bending at knee, I'm thinking of driving my heels back. So with this one, set number 1, again, starting off with it set to be most difficult in the beginning and middle range. In the final set, it is all just in the beginning, so in the lengthened portion. First set is the lengthened to middle portion. And yeah, you can see here, again, just fully control. A lot of people neglect that last rep and will just drop it off. Now, stiff-legged deadlift using the belt squat. This is a great variation, okay? Especially during prep when a barbell, you know, it's not quite like as stable. I do not use a belt here, okay? I like to train my core as well throughout this. Obviously, that's not the primary decider in this, but I've recently just pulled a plate off of this and decided to take a step back and really focus again on my tempo, on the overall stimulus of the set, get as much as I can out of this, because I got caught chasing a logbook and I did actually hurt my back. And from that point, it was a pure ego thing, right? I was determined to maintain 5 plates throughout prep, and I nearly paid the cost for it. It was a minor tweak, but it was enough to feel it for like a week. And luckily I had a deload after that, and my back has recovered. But yeah, I have taken a plate off of this. So now I am doing 4 plates per side instead of 5, and just really chasing the stimulus of that set. No more chasing logbooks, no more chasing numbers. Like, the last thing I want is to get injured when I've gone 19 weeks at this point without actually hurting myself. And if that's the worst of the injuries, then I'll take it all day. Another machine here, which has recently been added in, just to give my rear delt a little bit of extra volume, is this rear delt fly. Okay, so using the Prime fly machine here, and this is actually the first time that I've used this, but it's a lot better than standard kind of like fly setups or fly machines that you would use, because it comes a lot further across the body in the bottom position, in comparison to like a lot of machines where you're not really able to get the rear delt in that stretch position. So this is a good variation. Obviously, again, you can manipulate the resistance profile. With that, I also just kind of keep it in that like mid to lengthen range. I'm not really too, mid to lengthen range. I'm not really too like particular about that one, to be honest. But yeah, it's great variation. Really just thinking of driving my arm out and away. A lot of people will just end up using that upper back when they do this. And now to finish off the session, we have got some hanging leg raises. So with this, how I like to do it is I like to keep my legs straight. I like to keep my back flat against the pad. I'm really pushing myself back into this to create, again, as much stability as possible. I'm trying to keep my abs on throughout this movement. I want my legs lined up with my hips, and I'm pointing my toes out. Okay, a lot of people are just flinging their legs up here rather than actually using their abs to do this movement right. I might use a little bit of momentum at the end, but again, that's just to get the final rep. Now, onto the posing rounds, which I've just put in there like 3 times speed for you, so we can have a little look over. So front relax there, going into our quarter turn to the right, gentlemen, into a side relax. You can see the glute lines coming in, then into our rear relax here. So turn those hamstrings on, glute lines are coming in. Yeah, looking pretty decent from the rear. Pause. Then we go into the next one, so quarter turn to the right. Another side relax. This is definitely my weaker side for the side relax. It doesn't feel as natural. I struggle to rotate as much on that side. Into the front double bicep, I like to do the classic variation. Into probably my strongest pose, which is the lat spread. Then we are going into the side chest. So I'm just rattling off the mandatories here. So into the side chest, glutes on. You can see the detail in the glutes. Straight into side tricep. You need to turn those abs on earlier. Then we are going into the rear double bicep. So show off that Christmas tree. Boom. This is a pose that I struggle with the most. And you can just see having a mirror is definitely like a blessing and a curse, because I'm constantly trying to like adjust, and I'm just over analyzing this pose like you wouldn't believe. Straight into the rear lat spread. So definitely not as strong from the rear as it is from the front. Then we go into kind of like this transition pose here before hitting the abs and thigh, hitting it with the vacuum. Let me know which one you prefer. Again, another kind of like transition pose there, then into the most muscular, then into another most muscular variation. Now I'm checking my phones. I'm like, what's the time? How long have I been in here? Hitting some classic poses now. So little mantis there. Now we'll go for the single arm mantis. I'm struggling to hold my vacuums now in this for some reason. I'm not too sure why. I never used to, even when I was heavier. Into the single arm bicep, teapot or teacup, into the single arm bicep. Then here, trying to hit some Arnold poses into the Mjolnir. I don't know how to say that. Then we have got the single arm kind of like Arnold pose here. Again, another one that I'm kind of over analyzing, overdoing, into this other classic variation. Then into this classic front lat spread there. Then we are going into the teapot in this one. Boom. And that is everything. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Catch you in the next one.